to people. All right, so here's a few news articles. This I thought was pretty awesome. They have a robot competition in the engineering department. And one of my students are going to do it last semester. They have sumo contests where you push each other to the ring. But in Japan, they're much more awesome at it. And this is what the robot sumo competition looks like in Japan. That's what you should expect, right? It should be superhumanly fast, superhumanly powerful, go by faster than a human could do it. Those people are not messing around. Anyway, all right. So this is interesting. This guy said students would come to him and ask for advice about employment and interviews and stuff, and I really don't know much about it. We have another teacher here, Richard Wu, who used to be a corporate hiring manager, and he has far better advice because I haven't done hardly any of that. But what he says is you should ask them what happened at your company that would not happen anywhere else. And he claims from that you can try to make a judgment of how toxic their culture is. I don't know if this is true, but I know it is a huge problem. Some companies, people are happy and have a good life, and other companies, everybody's miserable and abused, and it's probably not easy to tell from the outside which of those you're jumping into.
It's hard to ask that question.
Yeah, that's right. I know a few years ago, as part of the accreditation crisis here, they actually paid an outside company to go around and interview city college workers. And I think what they found is the teachers are largely pretty happy because the administration doesn't even matter. They put you in the room with the students, they leave, and you can teach a class. But the administrative workers are just miserable, like the post office. They say, my boss promotes people they like. I don't even tell me what my job requirements are. I don't know what's going on. They yell at me all the time. It's maddening. Because it's chaos. There's no clear organization. And there was a study that came out about a week ago that said this is the #1 predictor of insecure products. It's not the technology you use, but the administrative chaos of your company. And I can tell because I submit a lot of vuln reports. I've submitted about 80 vulnerability reports in the last month or so. And most of the time when I send a report to a company saying your product has a security defect, I get either nothing or I get a reply saying, I looked and I can't figure out which of our products you're trying to buy and I don't even know what you're talking about. They don't know what security is. They have no idea who they should forward it to. All they know is, I'm going to get in trouble for this. And you can tell it's a miserable company where nobody knows what's going on and they're all just trying to avoid punishment. And that's what makes things insecure because you don't know what to do. Anyway, so these are robot tanks. Now this is there's some big lies in computer science. Since the 1960s, an endless chain of computer science grants have been funded with 3 big lies. And those are, we are going to make robot vision that can see things and they'll drive cars for you. We are going to make AI that will replace humans and think for you. And we are going to make soldiers that are robot soldiers. So we don't have to send our boys off to die in combat. The robot soldiers will go out there and do that. They've been promising this since the 60s. All these things turned out to be much, much, much more difficult. And so they tried to use these things, I think, more than 10 years ago in Iraq. They tried, and every time they've tried to use them, they've turned around and shot the wrong people. And this one, they made robot tanks with guns on it to shoot down airplanes, and it trained its guns on the bleachers full of generals that were there to observe it. And they managed to stop it from firing before it shot the generals. And ever since then, they haven't given them the ability to fire without human approval. Because this is, I think, what Tesla found out. They made a self-driving car, except the defect is it plows right into stationary objects, like other cars and trees and stuff. And it says, well, it can't really tell a stationary tree from like a mark in the road. And I say, well, I would say that's a serious defect. I mean, I could see it making a mistake, but plowing right into a stationary object seems like a really big mistake. And, it turns out that, humans can do things and it's really not that easy. Anyway, so they have robot tanks. Right now, they're just carrying things. And if they have guns, there's a human approval before they shoot. And I think the same thing's true of our drones, right? There's a human playing like a video game. They don't actually have a robot deciding when to kill people. They would love to do it that way, but it turns out to be a bad idea. Anyway, so this is pretty funny. This is the official Space Force logo. And people are complaining it's just like the Starfleet Command logo, but the US military is saying, well, we had that symbol first and Starfleet copied it from us. So there are arguments on both sides of this. But anyway, people are mocking it and demanding royalties and having a good time with it. But they were imitating something earlier. So anyway, yep. This coronavirus thing is amazing. It's like the beginning of a zombie movie. I mean, and they say there's the bodies lined up in the hallways of hospitals, and all the epidemiologists say that even though they have done the most draconian quarantine possible, it's way too late, you're screwed. And I saw numbers, which I'm not sure I fully understand, but I think they said it has an 83% transmission rate or something. So it's like science fiction. I think that means 83% of the people that breathe in your cough get infected or something. And they don't know what the death rate is. They think it might be 3%, it might be 20%, might be less, because they don't really know how many people are infected, but they do know it's everywhere, including here, Europe, Hong Kong, just everywhere, because it has a 5-day incubation. And then in response, the United States has flown a special plane to bring everybody from the infected region back here right away, which is a curious response. If you ask me, we better save those people from that quarantine. Bring them back here where they're, but I hope they like quarantine them for 5 days when they get here anyway. That would be nice.
You never know.
Otherwise, it's kind of the opposite of what you should be doing. Anyway, we'll see how this all goes. It has benefits for me though, because I did a workshop in China, and I think the competition is going to be weak. A lot of people are afraid to go, which is good for me. This is also, I won the black badge at DEF CON by the same thing. I took a contest where everything was messed up and everybody else gave up and left. And I said, hey, this is looking winnable. The competition just left. Anyway, so they made a smart factory honeypot. They set up a network that appears to have all these factory machines and industrial control systems, and then they watched for people to hack it and found, of course, everybody and their brother will hack it. It all has default passwords and obvious vulnerabilities, and so they got a series of attacks. They got several ransomware attacks, and they analyzed which ransomware. Phobos was one of the ransomwares, and various other people hacked in. And then various sort of gray hats came in and like put up messages say you should patch your stuff and started changing the password. Everybody came to play in their playground, and that's kind of what honeypots are for. You get an example of what's going on out there. So this is all the hotness. Ever since Snowden, there's been a huge issue of how do you detect disloyal people. After Snowden was a trusted guy with a security clearance that just dumped out all the secrets out of a political conviction, all the managers asked their staff, how do you know one of our guys isn't disloyal? And they said, well, how do you know? So I've been told they actually make you take polygraphs every 3 months if you're at the NSA now. And I know there are commercial products they will sell you to install on your network that will interrogate your domain controller, and it will supposedly find the disloyal employees by monitoring their hours of work and how much time they spend playing games and how many emails they send other parties and everything else, and try to figure out which one of them has a suspicious pattern of activity, which I highly doubt if that works. But anyway, Airbnb is trying to detect who are bad people to rent a place to based on the same kind of AI. And so it's a brave new world. Another thing I've heard is they now have AI that will query your social media profile and the internet for you, and then decide whether it's okay to hire you or not. So anyway, Netfork? I don't know what that is. Yeah, anyway, but it certainly, and by the way, it's been true for years that human firing managers will Google you to see what there is about you. This happened to me. I was going to get a job working for the military, and some lawyer Googled me and said, oh my God, this guy's a dangerous lunatic, you better not hire him. And then they called me up and I said, I didn't know what they were complaining about, but I didn't want to guess. There's quite a few things it could be. But anyway, I managed to calm their fears. I said, actually, there's a few things you might be upset about, and I'd rather not give you any ideas. Anyway. But I managed to calm for whatever they got mad about. But anyway, so this is pretty interesting to me. I'd like to hear more. So at UC Berkeley, they hired computer science engineering students to be like lab assistants. And if they had paid them 25% of a 40-hour week, given them that many hours, then they would have had to give them benefits. And they didn't want to do that, so they gave them 20%, 8 hours a week instead of 10 hours a week. And then they didn't give benefits. And then they complained and said, you gave us less hours just so you wouldn't give us benefits. They said, well, yeah. They said, well, then you have to give us benefits because that's dishonest. And they won, and they're going to give benefits. I'm thinking, wait a minute. I feel like I'm a typical fascist Republican. Wait a minute, you had the rules, they obeyed the rules. Then they sued and said, well, you used the rules to harm us. And I, well, but this is like people say Trump didn't win the popular vote. I say, well, he won by the rules. So why doesn't that count? Well, that doesn't count. Well, why doesn't that count? You got rules, you play, you win by the rules. Why should that not count? Anyway, there must be a little more to this, I imagine. Anyway, so Tinder added a panic button because there are scary stories of people going on Tinder dates, and there's some guy that's taking Tinder dates and killing people, and going on more Tinder dates and killing people, and they say, you'd like some reassurance that's not going to happen. Like there's Lyft and Uber drivers that are killing and raping people, and you'd like to think that the platform is somehow screening them out. So now they have a panic button, but the way they did it is probably what I would have done. The panic button sends a signal to another app you have to install, which is some kind of emergency contact app, which would seem fine, but then people said that contact app is like sending your personal data to Facebook or something, and so it's exposing your information to advertisers or something. I said, well, it probably is, and they probably didn't think about that, and I'm not sure you should care, but anyway, people are getting freaked out about it. So if you look at the network traffic from an app, which we're doing a lot in the mobile device class, they send data all over the place. Browser, and so it's certainly true that every app is spraying your data all over the world. And you can get upset about that if you like, but no easy way to fix it. So this is pretty amazing. When first I heard this, I read an article. I thought this is all garbage. So Jeff Bezos got a video by direct message from the Saudi Crown Prince. And then the Saudi Crown Prince, a few months later, because Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post, and the Saudis murdered a Washington Post reporter, and the Washington Post, as you might imagine, started publishing negative articles about this, saying, hey, killing our reporters bothers us. And they, of course, tried to lie about it. And the Washington Post proved that he was totally lying, and they totally executed him. And so then he started threatening Jeff Bezos that he was going to leak out secrets that he was apparently getting from his phone, like his naked pictures and his girlfriend he's cheating with and other things. And he said, so got an analyst company to investigate his phone, and they found after he opened that video from the Crown Prince, his phone started sending all kinds of extra data, but they didn't find the malware. And they didn't really find out where the data was going. So I'm looking at this like a lot of people saying, this is pretty weak evidence of a hack. I would like to see the malware and the command and control center for indicators of compromise, but the UN issued an official report. People are taking this seriously. They're saying it really happened, and it really happened directly from the Crown Prince's account. I don't know if this is true, but it's yet another really bad bunch of press for the Saudis. The Saudis are totally denying it. In fact, now they're demanding like retraction and apology and stuff. Yeah, but they, I don't think that evidence would hold up in court. I mean, you do malware analysis, you get indicators of compromise. You should have a signature of known malware or an IP address of a real command and control center or real traffic going there. I mean, I don't know, man.
We had WhatsApp on our government office.
Yeah.
CPA tells me to take WhatsApp off just for that specific reason. Security.
Well, WhatsApp is considered pretty secure these days. Yeah, this is it, CNIT 50. Yeah, I put a sign on the door to bring you back here. Yeah, it'll be here from now on. Yeah, good. Anyway, yeah, good. I'm glad people are finding it. Yeah, well, WhatsApp is supposed to be end-to-end encrypted and about as safe as you can get. But of course, if the person at the other end is sending you the malware, then it will just efficiently deliver the malware. I mean, nothing can protect you from that. But anyway, it's let's see if anything else. Yeah, so now they're going to make a video about the Jamal Khashoggi. So this is going to, and this guy's argument is not only are the Saudi Arabians horrible people, but any American company that does business with them is complicit in all their crimes. And that would be me. I teach classes to Saudi Arabians. So we'll see if the political pressure becomes so extreme that I have to knock it off, or if the Democrats win, there may be real sanctions against them. I checked the list because I teach classes in China. And when I went to China and I wanted to teach a cryptography class, they said, you can't because of US export restrictions. And I looked it up. And it's true, but Saudi Arabia is on our closest friends list. They're on the same list with Canada and Mexico and France. So as far as I know, they are our ally, and it's perfectly fine to teach stuff over there. But as these scandals grow, there may come a time when it becomes politically inexpedient to teach classes there. And I know some people say they're afraid of openly doing business with them just because they're afraid of backlash from the community. But currently, we don't. They're on the list of our most close friend nations right now, but they're sure having an awful lot of bad press. So Google Cloud is now going to have a secret manager because this is a very common thing. You go to GitHub and people put passwords and private keys in the source code, and they say, well, where should you put them? Well, you got to put them somewhere, and one thing you can do is put them in the cloud. And Google has an encrypted cloud thing like keychain in the cloud, so that might be a good answer. I don't know. It's various companies have tried things like this. Microsoft had something called Passport, where they want Microsoft to be your authentication for everything and you go through them. Facebook is de facto the authentication provider for almost everything in the world, but it is a big problem. You have passwords and keys and you have to put them somewhere, and developers don't know where they should go, so they just stick them in the source code, and that turns out to be a bad idea. So then everybody tries to invent some kind of system of storing them somewhere and having developers fetch them, and then somehow being able to update them and making sure all the apps can find them. And, you know, maybe it's time for some trusted third party to provide this service. We'll see. Anyway, I think that's enough of that. We're down to the official time. And so we're here for CNIT 50, and I'll give you an introduction to the class. This class used to be a generic open source class in network security monitoring using Security Onion. And I learned that Security Onion is incredibly painful to use. It's large portions of it are out of date. It's very unreliable. The developers love it, but nobody else can make it work. But however, as with most technology, there is an open source product, which is where it's all prototyped and developed. Security Onion uses ELK, which is Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana. And that is basically how network security monitoring works. If you want to do log monitoring, the fundamental problem is you have to get logs from all these devices, and they're all formatted differently. So you have logs from the routers, logs from the firewall, logs from the web server, logs from the endpoints like Windows machines and Mac machines and Linux servers, and you have authentication logs and access logs and all kinds of logs coming in, and you want to put them all in one big pile, and you want to be able to search it efficiently. And it turns out that it's a total mess, sort of like Google searching the web. You have billions of web pages, but they're not formatted in any consistent way. So the open source solution for that is ELK. And that does the job, but it's real hard to set up and keep running and use. And Splunk is the expensive commercial product that makes it easy to use that engine. They've added some sort of proprietary search engine on top of it, and they made it beautiful, and they've charged a ton of money to license it. And I think all 100 of the Fortune 100 companies are using Splunk. It's really valuable on your resume. It's very expensive. You can easily pay $10,000 or $20,000 a year of licensing costs, but big companies don't blink at that at all because employees can use it, and you can easily find employees that are certified and trained in it. So it's a standard like Microsoft Office. There's a free product called OpenOffice, but nobody wants it because if you use the real Microsoft Office, it's worth paying for because now you have the standard. Now everybody can trade documents. Now you can easily get trained people. So I turned this class into just a Splunk certification class. Splunk certifications are great to have on your resume. Splunk is a San Francisco employer, and I found out they are the 4th highest paying employer in the world. The people I know that work at Splunk are ridiculously happy. They say, I'm sort of embarrassed at how nice it is here, how much luxury it is. They're rolling in the dough. They have big conferences, and they have a huge user community that donates, products. So whatever you buy, every firewall and every device you can buy comes with a Splunk module you can run to convert it into Splunk and forward it to Splunk, because that's what everybody wants. Put it in Splunk. And there are cheaper alternatives like Logarithm and other ones that are cheaper than Splunk but not free. And then there's the free stuff, which is ELK. So you can make the open source thing for free, but as we've all learned, I think, over the last years, there's this Linux concept of free, and then there's this Microsoft concept of total cost of ownership. They say the software might be free, but how much do I really pay? Paying for engineers to run it, paying for tech support. And if I just paid a licensing fee and it was just a standard product with textbooks and classes, then all that other support wouldn't be such a drag. And in fact, it's probably cheaper to really pay for the real commercial expensive product than to try to make the open source product go, unless you are, for example, a very hot open source shop. Like Cloudflare is totally running on BSD, Unix, and stuff. Everybody there is a Linux admin. So of course they use the open source version of everything, and that's acceptable because they expect everybody to be very, very good at that. But ordinary shops have a lot of people that are not that sharp with open source tools, and they'd rather just use a commercial tool. So anyway, so what's going to happen here is I ditch the textbook and everything, and I'm just using the free online Splunk course. And you will get the first Splunk certification, Splunk Course certified user, and you will discover it is absurdly easy. It is very simple. It's kind of dull. You just learn how to use the product. What do you click on? What are the major components? What color does the word turn when you put in a keyword? And I took the test. The test is 60 questions, 1 hour. I did it in 10 minutes. It's very easy certification. But it starts, there are further certifications beyond, which I'm not covering in this course. But that's why this is a short-term course. There's only 6 meetings. And there's online course you take, and there's little online quizzes and projects you turn in, and that's enough to complete the course. However, that's not why I started teaching the course. The reason I started teaching the course is because I did the Splunk CTF, which is called Boss of the SOC, and that was interesting. And I put that in here as extra credit. That's actually beyond this certification. This certification is just basic use, but the CTF is where you actually use it to find real malware, and that is good, clean fun. So what you do is you take this online course and turn in stuff, and then you take some quizzes on my server. So this is at samsclass.info. That's where everything is. Everything, I know all my classes are here. So you go to CNIT 50, then it'll show you what to do here. Here you go and sign up for this Splunk online course here. And you'll see little videos and take little pop quizzes. And then there's some hands-on projects after the first couple modules where you install Splunk. You can install it on anything, your laptop, a Linux server, a cloud server. It goes on every OS. It's nice and luxurious like Microsoft Word. You're just going to make it do very simple things and practice to get the certification. There are some quizzes you should take, and you have to click this link to join my quiz server. It is not the City College Canvas server because I make this course free to everybody in the world. So it's not the official City Course server, it's just an open source server. So anybody can sign up here and take quizzes, and that's part of your points. And the rest is projects you turn in, which are really just screenshots showing you've done the labs that come with the Splunk online course. So I have deadlines for these things to come in the cost of 6 class meetings. Class meets about every 3 weeks on this schedule. And I have deadlines, but I'm not going to punish you for being late. I just recommend doing it by then. Don't fall behind or you'll suffer. But the total amount of content in this course is actually pretty small. It's only a 1-unit course. It's much smaller than a normal 3-unit security course. Anyway, what I would recommend is doing the extra credit, which I'll demonstrate later, which is this Boss of the SOC. This is where you find real attacks on real network data. In order to promote Splunk and help train Splunk, they paid Splunk engineers to set up a fake corporate network on Amazon and with everything, an email server and a web server and a domain controller and a Linux server and all this junk, and then attack it, and then get all the log data and stick it someplace, and then give you questions. Find the ransomware attack, find where someone plugged in a USB and got infected, find the brute force attack that guessed the password for the administration panel and so on, and you can practice doing all those things in Splunk. And that's what convinced me this thing is great. Because if you don't have a tool to help you, I don't know where to look in the logs for the brute force attack and this and that. And the whole point of Splunk is it's all in one place, and it's like Google. You just have to learn how to type in the right queries, and you're searching through all the log data. You can find out what happened, but you do have to learn how to use it. So it is a good skill to get, and they'll pay you money to be the person running Splunk. It's so this, I think, is where you practice what you'll probably really be doing on the job. As an entry-level security analyst, you will not be installing Splunk and configuring it. You'll just be using it. Your entry-level SOC analysts, they're looking at alerts, and it's like help desk. The first level, all they do is like the top 10 questions. Reset your password. Do you have the right version of the software? Has your license expired? And so as a level 1 SOC analyst, you handle the common things. It's a DDoS attack, it's this attack, and you just learn how to spot the common things. But as you move up, you become a threat hunter, and you start looking for things that are not the top 10 vulns. And this is, between level 1 and level 2, learning how to find things with Splunk. Anyway, so that's the organization of it. You do not have to attend class physically, or for that matter, at all. You can connect over Zoom. There's a Zoom link here, and I see 6 people are doing that. You can live connect with Zoom and participate in the class live. After each class, I put the video up here on YouTube. You can just view it later. You can also just ignore everything I say and just do the Splunk online course, which has got its own little videos and stuff. So, as long as you learn it somehow and turn in the evidence that you took the quizzes and did the projects, you'll be fine. And you could also ignore a whole bunch of that and just do this CTF down here. And that would be fine too. If you practice finding these things at real Splunk, you have to get up to, I think about 200 points total of something. I'll have the total later on in the semester, the total you have to get. Anyway, are there any questions about anything? Yeah. samsclass.info. And here, let me put it up here big in a text editor so people can see it. I actually had some paper to hand out, but I forgot to bring it. There. Yep, that's the important thing. And the most common thing people do is forget to put this S in. If you do that, you get to some phishing site or some horrible thing. So go to samsclass.info and everything's there. And I think I have an email address for this course too, hopefully. See if I'm organized enough. Perhaps not, but it'll be in the projects. Let me see. So when you turn in the projects, yeah, so there. Here's, if you wish to contact me about anything about the course, use this email. I have a personal email, but it's often completely filled with spam, so I miss things. This one goes to my efficient grader who responsibly makes sure everything gets some proper attention. So it's best for anything related to like grading and scores to go there. Any questions? Any other questions? If anybody tried to add, I approved all the ad requests before this class started. They changed the ad system. We used to use something called ad codes. Those are gone. Now you just log into my RAM and request to add, and it will either add you in automatically or it will send me something to approve, which I will approve. So you should be able to just add if you want to. If you want to just attend this course and do this, and you don't care about getting college credit, that's fine with me. Just don't tell the administration. And you know, if you already have a college degree and you don't need credit from a community college, that might be fine, but I highly encourage you to get the real Splunk certification. If you do this, then you can sign up for online and go to a testing center. The college is not one, and you pay $60 and you can become, or $100 or something, you can get this certification. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was that again? You go to RAM?
You might, yeah, go to C, it's the same thing, CCSF. They changed the name. It used to be called Web4, but they changed it to My RAM. It's the same thing though. So you go here and you click this thing, My CCSF. And then you log in here to My RAM, and then somehow you add courses. I don't quite know how it looks for students. The teacher side looks different, but I saw students doing it in previous classes. And someplace in there you can try to add a class, and you just make a request without an ad code now. And it will, you'll be in as soon as I approve it. Any other questions? All right, well, let me start with the official Splunk material, and you will see how outrageously easy it is. And then we'll take a break, and then I'll demonstrate the first few of the boss of the SOC queries, which are more fun. So it's Splunkleck. Here's my Splunkleck. Okay. So you log in and you'll get your own materials. I'm not supposed to distribute mine, but when you log in, you make a free Splunk account, you get your own materials and access to videos and little quizzes. And I've got, here's the PDF, and that's all I need for right now. I think this is it. All right. Yeah, here's the official Splunk slides, and it's possible to, yeah, that should do it. All right, so here's the Splunk course. There's 13 modules, and we're going to do 4 of them today. They're really short and simple. And so you learn basically how Splunk works and what it is, how to install it, and then basically how to use it. And that's it for the first Splunk certification. So the point of Splunk, you have devices on your network like firewalls and web servers, and they are keeping logs, but those logs are typically like a text file in the var logs directory, or for your firewall, it might be a binary file in some proprietary format on a Fortinet firewall or something. And in order to know what's going on, you need to get all the logs from all your devices into one central database. So what you do is you get, in an enterprise, you actually get a big cluster of machines and a SAN array or something, because the logs end up being big. And then you have forwarders on all the devices that forward the logs over the network to the central place. And then you have a Splunk indexer that indexes them, which is just like the Google indexer that chews all that data and into some consistent way and adds it to some database, which I think is Mongo. And then you have a query engine that can query against that database. And what Splunk has done is make this all fast and efficient, because the job is in fact monstrous. Even the simplest thing adds up to millions of events, hundreds of millions, billions of events. So querying that and not taking forever is actually quite a challenge. However, you can run Splunk on a single server to monitor what's happening on that server, and that's good enough to practice how to use it. But in a corporate environment, of course, it's got to be a much bigger system to keep track of all the information you get from all these corporate networks. So that's the point of this. By the way, Splunk is trying to expand beyond security. They'll talk in this about how they would like, you could use Splunk to keep track of your sales and customers and do business queries, like which product is selling well, because it's just a database. You can do anything else a database can do. I really don't know how successful they are at expanding into that market, but they're trying to, so you'll see it mentioned here. But the main current market I hear about is security. That's where they're really hot. in business, I used to do business databases, and in business, you don't have unstructured data. You write products that record your data in a flat format. So you don't have this problem of aggregating just different kinds of data. So it would seem to me like Splunk is not the right product for that, but they appear to have some desire to move in that direction. Anyway, so you index the data, then you can search the data, then you can add other knowledge. They have a bunch of third-party add-ons you can put in that will look for ransomware and OWASP top 10 and PCI compliance and all these other important security issues. And then you can monitor, you can search old data to do instant response. You can also have live alerts that will warn you when something bad happens in practice, and send off text messages and emails and stuff to tell people a bad thing is happening right now. And you can also have reports, like compliance reports at the end of the month, reporting sales figures or reports of security incidents and everything else. It's all in there because you need all those for business. And I've got students moving into compliance. Compliance, by the way, is a really good thing to do. I should mention this from a viewpoint of career planning. The first thing is there's a job fair on Monday. You should come if you're looking for a job or a promotion at 5 o'clock in MUB 140. We have 15 or more employers coming, and there are some with unpaid internships where you do something very simple like refurbish donated machines to give away to people. And there are top pen testing jobs and development jobs and coding jobs and all sorts of good stuff there. So you should come and listen. Even if you feel like you're not ready to get a job yet, you'll see what's happening. And if you are ready, wear good clothes and bring a resume and start applying. Yeah.
Is it specific to cybersecurity, or is it?
It's no, computer networking and computer science. So it's all kinds of things. But I highly recommend it. It's getting very popular. Last time I was there were like 150 students and like 12 or 14 employers hiring for like 50 positions. And a bunch of people got jobs right on the spot. And a lot of those jobs are very desirable. Some of them don't pay anything, but you get very good experience, like the housing authority. They don't pay you, but you get to use a professional SOC with all the latest everything. You get real experience with all this exciting stuff. And then there's ones that are actually paying pretty good salary and putting you on real pen testing gigs. So everything's there. Yeah.
I've been looking for the information.
Yeah, I put it at the top of my website. So let me mention this. This is the first thing. So you go to samsclass.info. Yeah, and I put it right there. All I did was I didn't bother listing employers or anything but it's MUB 140 across the street from 5 to 7. Yep. But I recommend showing up, and we have it every semester. One semester we even had 2 of them. I don't know, we might have enough for 2. It keeps growing and growing. And I think that's going to continue. More employers are discovering us, and our cybersecurity team has been winning awards, and that's been getting more attention. So more and more people are deciding that this is the great place to come and get people to hire, which is just what I want. So anyway, that's one thing. The other thing about career planning, I don't know if I can remember what I was going to say about it. Anyway, I'll just carry on here. Oh, the other thing I wanted to talk about is compliance. In security, there are 2 general areas. There's red team and blue team. And then there's a more subtle distinction between the people who do compliance and the people who do direct combat. Now, what most people think they want to do is be a pen tester, because that's being like a frontline soldier. That's in the combat, hacking into things, learning all the latest exploits. And actually, a lot of my students are getting red team jobs, which surprised me because I didn't think there were that many, but there's more. That's a real career path, but it's a real cowboy hotshot path, and you spend long periods of time and you travel all over the place. And there are other people who just want to defend. And defense is sort of more boring. You get a suit, you get paid more money, you become management, and you spend most of your time going down checklists because, you know, defense is making sure all the doors are locked and all the people have gone to HR, and it's a lot of stuff that isn't exactly fun, like fire drills, but that's what it is. The way people get in is somebody did something stupid. So your job is like a cop policing the grounds, seeing if somebody did something stupid around here. And the most extreme form of that is compliance. And when I had visiting speakers come and talk about job prospects, one frequently asked question is somebody in the audience will say, what about work-life balance? You know, I got a house and some kids and I want to have time with them. And you don't want to be on the red team then, because those guys stay up all night for a whole weekend and hack into things. You don't really want to be on the defensive blue team because somebody hacks the server and you're there all night. It's like being a doctor on call. What you want is compliance. Compliance is the boring side of security, and they pay a lot of money where you make sure that you're meeting all these compliance rates. It's like HR. there's this book full of regulations, and you have to submit a report every quarter proving that you've obeyed all those regulations, and you have to bother everybody to send you reports, which you aggregate and send up, and it's really it's a normal administrative task, but you have to know something about security technology, so an ordinary MBA can't do it. And that is where you want to go if you actually want like work-life balance. Yeah.
So we're using compliance honestly with
GRC, what's that? Oh, regulatory compliance. Yeah, yeah.
governance.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I'm talking. Well, there's different levels of it. Yeah, there's also the governance of like the CISO, which is management of all this. But your compliance officer is typically just making sure you match one standard, which is just like your HR department, making sure that you obey the tax code or the regulations to your employees and such. That's all. Yes, check boxes. And so the pen testers sneer at them and say these guys are just stupid and who would want to do that. But the people who actually want to go home at 5 discovered it. That's the advantage. And the other thing I've learned from my students that are doing it, and from my experience reporting vulnerabilities, I've gained a lot more respect for compliance. If an ordinary startup, you just have a bunch of cowboys throwing things together, everybody comes out every day and writes more software and connects you to more random cloud services until you just have a sprawling mess of everything. And then when you first try to achieve compliance, you realize, some of our customers are coming in as root, 5 people are sharing an account. We signed up for these 5 services and they expired, but nobody disconnected them. We don't actually know where our data is. How many copies of our data do people have at home and on their laptop? And it's actually not stupid to say, you got to organize this. You got to know where everything is. You got to know who's doing what. Everybody has to have an account. That's really important. And I appreciate it when I report vulnerabilities to a company. If they meet a compliance standard, then they actually reply with a ticket number and they actually do something with my report. Instead of just saying, what, who are you? Please die in a fire. I don't want to hear it. They actually have some process to handle things like security problems. It's just not easy to bring order out of the chaos of a startup. So anyway, I have more respect for compliance than I used to when I was sort of a more typical red teamer. It's not a total waste of your time, but it is a lot of it's like being a parent. It's getting your kids to stop doing so many bad things you have to get everybody who's sort of a cowboy to report to you on a regular basis and actually stop breaking the rules. And they'll all say, oh, don't bother me. I'm a hero. I'm saving the company by writing my code. And you have to convince them to obey the rules without them quitting or hitting you too much. It's like parenting. Anyway, so that's the point. You get data in from all your devices everywhere, all coming into one central place, and then it goes into the search head. So the forwarders forward it from all your devices, goes to the indexer, which stores it in this big Mongo database, and then you have a search head, which can search it as various analysts are in here searching to see what's in there. All right, and I see a online chat message coming in. It sounds like a Splunk user is more likely a blue teamer. Yes, Splunk is only blue team. You don't attack anybody with Splunk. All you do is detect attacks. And of course, compliance might use Splunk, but they probably wouldn't. I would say Splunk is pretty much a blue team product. It's only intended for defense. That's a very safe statement. Knowing about Splunk is pretty important in the industry, but if you're just a pen tester, then Splunk would not be directly useful to you. The only thing you would want to know as a pen tester is how to avoid showing up in the Splunk logs. But that's true of all the other defenses. You want to know how to avoid setting off intrusion detection systems. You want to know how to avoid antivirus products and so on. So Splunk is another one of those pesky defensive things that you would have to learn how to get past. Yeah.
Would there be any overlap between the compliance department and the blue team to be able to kind of understand what?
Oh, extensively. I mean, your blue team is writing policies and enforcing them. And really, your compliance team is basically part of the blue team.
So
but
therefore, would this rule could be of value to them?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, Splunk is quite valuable, I think, to compliance people in particular. But mainly to the direct application of it is security analysts to monitor intrusions and threat hunting to find problems on the network. But as Splunk keeps saying, you could also use it for routine queries, like how many devices do we have and how many have been used and how many people have been going in this folder. Those are other things you could get out of it. So yeah. But anyway, the main thing people do is look for attacks. That's the most common application of it, but they're expanding to other things. So there's various versions of it. And let me get this thing to back to its slideshow means. Okay. So you have apps. Splunk is the basic search engine, and then you can add apps, like you add browser apps add extra features, extra panels, like security essentials for fraud detection and so on. Splunk writes a lot of them. Some of them cost money. A bunch of them are just community donated and free, and you can add them to your Splunk, and it now puts more features in there. We're not going to use very many apps, but you'll learn how to install them. There's other fancy advanced stuff which we're not going to use, but you're supposed to know it exists. There's something called Splunk Intelligence Service, Enterprise Security, and User Behavior Analytics. This is a huge thing. Like I was saying, one use of it is try to find who's disloyal in your company. Another side is customer relationship management. You'd like to know what people are doing and therefore try to guess, you know, you appear to be having a problem. Can I help you? That sort of thing. So you have users. Splunk has user accounts. By the way, Splunk is very expensive, but there is a free version. And I think this is really quite brilliant. The free version gives you all the features except user accounts. Everybody's always logged in as administrator. Now that's a pretty good way to punish you. You seriously can't use it that way, but you can totally learn how to use it that way. But you certainly can't deploy it in your company with everybody logged as an administrator all the time. And the other thing is you can only do a certain number of gigabytes of live data per day, like 500 megs or something. So you can't really monitor a large network, but you can analyze archive data without limit. So you can totally load a set of archive data and search it and learn how to use the product with no limitations, but it's crippled in a way that you seriously can't use it in production. I appreciate that. People that don't have a free version, I pretty much can't teach their product. You gotta have something students can get their hands on. And so, yeah.
What would be the use case there? Would somebody come in and audit archive data and give them a kind of sample of what is possible?
Well, sure, and also for training. Yeah, that's what this like CTF is. There's archive data with a bunch of attacks, and you practice how to find them. So, I mean, it's good for training. Also, you might in a company. I don't think you use archive data very much, except for historical records. In a company, you want to audit live data, and that you have to pay more. But it's exactly the same features and everything, so it's very nice. Anyway, so however, in the pay version, you can have admin, power, and user roles. The users are limited, the powers in between, and the administrator can do everything. There's two reasons here, of course. Your analyst, who is a junior hire, shouldn't really have the ability to delete data from Splunk or turn off Splunk or something, so they should just be a user. And the other thing, which is perhaps not so obvious, is that logs often contain secret stuff. They contain passwords, cookies, session numbers and stuff, and you probably just don't want everybody seeing them. So you have user roles you can use to limit who's allowed to see what. All right, so you connect with Splunk through a web browser. It looks like Google. And you then log in with the username and password, and then you see a search page. This one here has 5 million events, and you can start searching through those events. And all you do is you type a query in there just like you would at Google. And you look for things. And the whole skill is in learning how to type the right query to find something out of those millions of events instead of just wandering around lost in all that junk. Which is, by the way, pretty much the same thing you learn to find things with Google. If you don't know how to type good Google queries, you spend your time wading through pages of junk instead of finding what you need. Yeah?
So just plain text, no SQL kind of syntax or anything?
Well, you can put in plain text and it will search for those words. There is a SQL type syntax you can use too, just like there's an advanced search option in Google. And learning how to use that is good. Yeah. Good. What's that?
Not part of this training.
We're going to use it a lot in the bots, and the simple parts of it are in this training. We'll talk about it, and then that's mostly what you're going to be doing in bots is writing queries with 3 or 4 or 5 pieces to narrow down to what you need. But mostly what you do is you do a general query and you look at the results and you find a way to refine it and refine it. So there's various apps that add extra features, but all we're going to use here is home and search and reporting. There are other pages out there, but we'll talk about them, but we're not going to use them too much. So the home app looks like this. You can't really do anything here. You have Splunk up in the corner, which is how you get back here, and then you have your apps there. And all we need is the search and reporting app for most of what we're doing here. We'll talk about the details as we go ahead. You can add dashboards here, and at a company you'd have a proprietary dashboard that looks pretty and stuff. But we're going to use the default one in this course. And so search and reporting app is the default interface that you see here. And there are various ways to get there, but search and reporting is right there on the left. That's where you spend almost all your time. Putting in, just like in Google, searching and finding things is what you're mostly doing. It also has the ability to make pretty dashboards and panels and written outputs and PDFs and all that jazz too for management. But most of the time, you're working in the search panel. So you type a search term in there, and then you see here the global stats, how many total events there are and how much time there is. The time range picker is going to be a big source of suffering. By default, it searches only the last 24 hours, which is probably fine for enterprise use. But for us, we're always going to be using archive data that's like a couple of years old. So you have to always remember to switch that to all time. And by the way, Splunk recommends not using all time because it slows everything down, of course. So there's always something about training products. We're going to be doing something that is considered unprofessional to do the training thing. In the real world, you usually don't search all time because, of course, that means there's a ton of irrelevant events. You have something like there's a ransomware warning, and so you will search like the last week or something because anything before that doesn't matter. Anyway, all right. And so there's data summary tabs that we'll see here, and I'll show you some of this stuff live later. Let's see what this is. I tried enrolling, followed the instructions. It appears I'm blocked on an embargo list. I have not run into that before. Let me know if that happens to anybody else. I did archive some of the materials so I can distribute them to you. I'll give you your name and password offline because I'm not supposed to officially distribute them, but I saved mine in case this would happen. You can at least get the written materials, but there's online videos and stuff. You're in the country though, K10, right? Anyway, let's see. I would try a VPN first and see if that does it. Let me know if you have trouble with that. I'll contact you when we take a break or something and help you move on with that. You can at least get my copy of the materials, but I'd like you all to get in the online course, and I'm sure we can manage it. I even have friends at Splunk we can contact if necessary. We'll find some way to get you in. Good. I appreciate it. There's always some troubles though. All right, and we'll use these things live. These are events. This is what happens when you search. You put in something up there like error or fail. So it's searching for, now if you just put in words like that, it searches the same way Google does. Every event is just a line of text. That's a log entry from some product. And if you just put in a word with no other information, it looks for that word in that line of text, just like Google would. So error or fail star will look for the straight error, a word error, or any word starting with fail in the line of text. And these things here are the events. And for the online people, let me make this a little smaller. Okay, these things here are called events. This is the formatted view of it. This is one log item. And by default, it shows you the most recent one first and then going backwards in time. And so this event happened at this time. And here's the information it had, www2 and failed password for user informix from here and so on. That's what's going on, and this event and this event. Now you can read these events one by one and try to find out what's going on, and that's an amateur move. Like if you're in Wireshark, you can look at packets one by one, and that really only works for very small data sets. There are better ways to tunnel down, and we'll talk about that. But this is what's going on. Now on the left here, you see the fields that it found. It always has host, source, and source type. The host is the name of the computer or device that sent this thing up. So the source, I guess I'm not quite sure about the difference between host and source. Source is the computer that was origin of the event. Host is something else. It's always the same thing in our practice. Source type is the type of data it is, which is basically the format the data was in. Source and source type turn out to be very useful. If you have an idea, you can use source and source type to filter down to just events from the intrusion detection system or just events from the web server, things like that, which is often what you want to do. And then you have other fields here. There will be a lot of them. These are just other fields that it found. Interesting fields are fields that appear in most of the data, and therefore fields you might want to filter on or look at. And the number tells you how many different values there were. So there were 7 hosts, 10 sources, 5 source types, 2 actions, and so on. So if you click those, it'll show you the various values. And we're going to use that a lot. And that'll make a lot more sense when you see it live in the Boss of the SOC stuff we're going to do later. So in the online course stuff, you use a data set from some place called Buttercup Games, where you're just searching. And most of the queries are business queries. We find out how many products sold this month and which employee sold the most product and so on, which is fine to just practice using the interface. The Boss of the SOC, we're going to be using attack data against another company. So this is your role in the online training event. You're a Splunk power user. You're the person finding problems at Buttercup. And what you're mostly doing here is business analytics is what your examples are mostly going to be, just so you learn basic database operations. So that's the first module. And looks like you've been here about an hour. We probably ought to take a 10-minute break before we proceed. So I'm going to stop this recording, but I'll leave the share going, and then let me see if I can resolve some issues. For example,